Enuma Elish, the Babylonian story of creation. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakim Ra. It is provided to the public by Amen-Ra University. Of all the Semitic inscriptions composed in cuneiform writing, few have awakened as great a general interest as the epic known among the Babylonians and the Assyrians as Enuma Elish, translated to mean when above, which takes its name from the opening words of the poem. Aside from linguistic considerations, this widespread popularity of Enuma Elish is, in part, due to its great significance for the study of the theogonic and cosmogonic views of the Mesopotamians, and thus for a comparative study of ancient Near Eastern religion in general. But above all else, it is due to the fact that the Enuma Elish presents quite a number of analogies to the first two chapters of Genesis. This great epic is recorded on 7 clay tablets and covers in all a little over 1,000 lines. The first fragments to come to light were discovered by Austin H. Layard, Hermosad Rassam, and George Smith among the ruins of King Ashur-bani-pal, 668 to 630 BC, the Great Library at Nineveh between the years of 1848 and 1876. During their explorations at Ashur, the old capital of Assyria, from 1902 to 1914, the German excavators unearthed a number of fragments of an Assyrian version of the Babylonian story, which differs from the latter chiefly in that some copies substitute the name of Ashur, the king of the Assyrian gods, for that of Marduk, the king of the Babylonian deities, and in that they make Lamu and Lahamu the parents of Ashur. In 1924 to 1925, 2 almost complete tablets, 1 and 6, of a Neo-Babylonian version of the epic were discovered at Kish by the joint expedition of Oxford University and the Field Museum of Chicago. And in 1928 to 1929, the Germans found quite a large Neo-Babylonian fragment of Tablet 7 at Uruk, the biblical Eret. Thanks to these discoveries and to purchases of fragments which have been made from dealers in antiquities, the epic has been restored almost into its entirety. The only tablet of which a large portion is still wanting is Tablet 5. The epic opens with a brief reference to the time when nothing except the divine parents Apsu and Tiamat and their son Mumu existed. Apsu was the primeval sweet-water ocean and Tiamat the saltwater ocean, while Mumu probably represented the mist rising from the 2 bodies of water and hovering over them, particularly since in Tablet 7, line 86, he is brought in direct relation with the clouds. These 3 types of water were mingled in one, forming an immense, undefined mass in which were contained all the elements of which afterward the universe was made. As yet, there was neither heaven nor earth, nor even a reed marsh was to be seen. In time, Apsu and Tiamat brought forth the brother and sister pair Lamu and Lahamu. While these 2 were growing up, another brother and sister pair came into being, Anshar and Kishar, who surpassed the older children in stature. The nature of these 2 divine pairs is still a matter for conjecture. After many years, a son was born to Anshar and Kishar. They named him Anu, probably in allusion to the fact that he was the likeness of his father Anshar. Anu was the sky god. He, in turn, begot Nudimmud, his likeness. Nudimmud, also known as Enki and Ea, was a god of exceptional wisdom and strength. He became the god of the subterranean sweet waters, the god of magic, and the mastermind of the Mesopotamian divinities. He had no rival among his fellow gods. In fact, because of the advantages with which he was endowed, he was the master, even of his father. The younger gods, being full of life and vitality, naturally enjoyed noisy, hilarious gatherings. These, however, caused serious distress to their old, inactive, and rest-loving parents and grandparents Apsu and Tiamat. Peaceful means were tried to diminish the disturbing clamor, but without success. Finally, Apsu, in utter exasperation, resolved on a drastic course of action. Accompanied by Mumu, his son and vizier, he went before Tiamat and submitted a plan to her which made her motherly heart cry out in painful rage. Why should we destroy that which we ourselves have brought forth? Their way is indeed painful, but let us take it good-naturedly. But Apsu, supported by his vizier, adhered to his express purpose with adamant tenacity. I will destroy them and put an end to their way. That silence be established, and then let us sleep. At the break of the news, the gods were filled with consternation and ran about aimlessly. Finally, they quieted down and sat in silent gloom, without anyone being able to suggest a way of deliverance. Fortunately, in that dark hour there was found one who was master even of Apsu. It was Ea, the one of supreme understanding, the skillful and the wise, the god of magic. He made a magic circle of some kind around the gods as a protection against attack, and then composed an overpowering, holy incantation. He recited it and caused it to descend as a soporific force upon Apsu. As Ea recited his incantation, Apsu succumbed to the power of the spell and sank into a profound sleep. And as Apsu was lying there suffused with sleep, Ea removed his royal tiara and his supernatural radiance and clothed himself therewith. After he had thus come into possession of Apsu's might and splendor, he slew the father of all the gods and imprisoned his vizier, gaining his victory chiefly through the application of authority or power inherent in the spoken word, which is the magic of the spell. Tiamat remained unmolested, since she had not been in sympathy with Apsu's designs. Upon the slain Apsu, Ea subsequently established a spacious abode. He named it Apsu and appointed it for shrines for himself and for other deities. There he and his wife Damkina dwelt in splendor. There also was Marduk, the wisest of the gods, who was born the one destined someday to deliver the gods from an even more dreadful foe and to become the head of the vast Babylonian pantheon. He who begot him was Ea, his father. Damki, his mother, was she who bore him. He sucked the breasts of goddesses and thus imbibed additional divine power and qualities. Marduk was an imposing figure, endowed with flashing eye and awe-inspiring majesty. When his father beheld him, he rejoiced. He beamed. His heart was filled with joy. Evidently, by means of magic, Ea then conferred upon his son double equality with the gods, which manifested itself in the two faces of Marduk and the double dimensions of his members, so that he was exalted among the gods. In the meantime, Tiamat was disturbed, doubtless because of the violent death of her husband. Day and night, she restlessly moved about. Her restlessness mounted as some of the gods, led by King Gu, in their wickedness instigated her to avenge the death of her spouse. Tiamat yielded and decided on war against the gods who were either responsible for or in sympathy with the murder of her husband. The rebel gods now publicly seceded and went over to the side of Tiamat. They raged, they plotted, not resting day or night. They held a meeting and, quote, planned the conflict. Tiamat, on her part, gave birth to 11 kinds of monster serpents and ferocious dragons for the impending contest. She exalted King Gu to be her new spouse. She entrusted him with the high command of the battle gave him dominion over all the gods, and presented him with the coveted Tablet of Destinies with all its magic powers. A formidable demonic host had suddenly sprung into existence. It was not until Tiamat was almost ready for the assault that someone informed Ea of the imminent peril. When Ea, the wise and the skillful, the hero who had vanquished Apsu, heard of the impending danger, he was benumbed with fear and dismay. When he had thought the matter over and had regained his composure, he went to Anshar, his grandfather, and communicated to him all that Tiamat had planned and the preparations she had made, repeating, word for word, the report which he himself had received. Anshar was moved to expressions of deepest grief and grave concern and appealed to Ea to proceed against the foe. Ea obeyed the voice of his grandfather, but the venture, though undertaken by him who had achieved such a decisive victory over Apsu, ended in failure. Anshar then turned to his son Anu, urging him to try peaceful measures, saying, "Go and stand thou before Tiamat, that her spirit become quiet in her heart. Calm down. If she does not hearken to thy word, speak our word to her, that she may be quieted." Anu went, armed with his own authority and that of the leader of the gods, but unlike Apsu, Tiamat could not be overcome by any amount of mere authority or any degree of mere magic power. She had to be conquered through the application of physical force. Anu returned in terror, asking to be relieved of the task. Anshar lapsed into silence, looking upon the ground and shaking his head. All the Annunaki were assembled at the place. Their lips were closed. They sat in silence. Never before had the gods been in such a plight. The picture is painted in extremely dark and somber colors to make the greatness of the subsequent victory all the more evident. In this moment of supreme crisis, a happy thought occurred to Anshar. He remembered the prowess of valiant Marduk, who in some way had already proved his valor, and who certainly would not fail. Marduk was summoned into the presence of Ea to be instructed by his father, and then appeared before Anshar. When Anshar saw the young Marduk, abounding in strength and radiating confidence, his heart was filled with joy. He kissed his lips. His fear was removed, while Marduk assured him, "Anshar, be not silent, but open thy lips. I will go and accomplish all that is in thy heart. My father, creator, be glad and rejoice. Soon thou shalt trample upon the neck of Tiamat." When above the heaven had not yet been named, and below the earth had not yet been called by a name, when Apsu, primeval, their begetter, Mumu, and Tiamat, she who gave birth to them all, still mingled their waters together, and no pasture land had been formed, and not even a reed marsh was to be seen. When none of the other gods had been brought into being, when they had not yet been called by their names, and their destinies had not yet been fixed. At that time were the gods created within them. Lamu and Lahamu came into being. They were called by their names. Even before they had grown up and become tall, Anshar and Kishar were created. They surpassed them in stature. They lived many days, adding years to days. Anu was their heir presumptive, the rival of his fathers. Yes, Anu, his firstborn, equaled Anshar, and Anu begot Nutamud, his likeness. Nutamud, or Nutamud, the master of his fathers, was he. He was broad of understanding, wise, mighty in strength, much stronger than his grandfather Anshar. He had no rival among the gods, his brothers. The divine brothers gathered together. They disturbed Tiamat and assaulted their keeper. Yeah, they disturbed the inner parts of Tiamat, moving and running about in the divine abode. Apsu could not diminish their clamor, and Tiamat was silenced in regard to their behavior. Yet their doing was painful to them. Their way was not good. Then Apsu, the begetter of the great gods, called Mumu his vizier and said to him, Mumu, my vizier, who gladdenest to my heart, come, let us go to Tiamat. They went and reposed before Tiamat. They took counsel about the matter concerning the gods, their firstborn. Apsu opened his mouth and said to Tiamat in a loud voice, Their way has become painful to me. By day I cannot rest, by night I cannot sleep. I will destroy them and put an end to their way. That silence be established, and then let us sleep. When Tiamat heard this, she was wroth and cried out to her husband. She cried out and raged furiously, she alone. She pondered the evil in her heart and said, Why should we destroy that which we ourselves have brought forth? Their way is indeed very painful, but let us take it good-naturedly. Mumu spoke up and counseled Apsu, and unfavorable was the advice of his Mumu. Yes, my father, destroy their disorderly way, then verily thou shalt have rest by day and sleep by night. When Apsu heard it, his face grew bright, because of the evil he planned against the gods, his children. Mumu embraced his neck, sat down on his knee, and kissed him. Whatever they planned in their assembly was communicated to the gods, their firstborn. When the gods heard it, they hastened about. They took to silence, and they sat quietly. The one of supreme understanding, the skillful and the wise Ea, who understands everything, saw through their plan. He made and established it a magical circle for all. He skillfully composed his overpowering holy incantation. He recited it and thus caused it to be upon the water. He poured out sleep upon him so that he slept soundly. When he had put Apsu to sleep, Apsu being suffused with sleep, Mumu his advisor loosened his band and tore off his tiara. He carried off his splendor and put it on himself. When he had thus subdued Apsu, he slew him. Mumu he shut in and barred the door against him. On Apsu he established his dwelling place. Mumu he seized for himself, holding him by his nose rope. After Ea had vanquished and subdued his enemies, had established victory over his foes, and had peacefully rested in his abode, he named it Apsu and appointed it for shrines. In his place he found his chamber. There Ea and Damki, or Damkina, his wife, dwelt in splendor. In the chamber of fates, the abode of destinies, the wisest of the wise, the wisest of the gods, the god was begotten. Within Apsu, Marduk was born. Within the holy Apsu, Marduk was born. He begot him who was Ea, his father. Damkina, his mother, was she who bore him. He sucked the breasts of goddesses. The nurse that cared for him filled him with awe-inspiring majesty. Enticing was his figure, flashing the look of his eyes. Manly was his going forth, a leader from the beginning. When Ea, his father that begot him, saw him, he rejoiced, he beamed, his heart was filled with joy. He distinguished him and conferred upon him double equality with the gods, so that he was highly exalted and surpassed them in everything. Artfully arranged beyond comprehension were his members, not fit for human understanding and hard to look upon. 4 were his eyes and 4 were his ears. When his lips moved, fire blazed forth. Each of his 4 eyes grew large, and likewise his eyes to see everything. He was exalted among the gods, surpassing was his form. His members were gigantic, and he was surpassing in height. Mariutu, Mariutu, son of the god, the sun god of the gods. He was clothed with the rays of 10 gods. Exceedingly powerful was he. The terror-inspiring majesty with its consuming brightness rested upon him. The 4 winds did Anu create, to restrain with his, the strongest of the hosts. He caused waves and disturbed Tiamat. Disturbed is Tiamat, and day and night she restlessly hastens about. The gods were not at rest, carrying on like the storm. They planned evil in their hearts. They said to Tiamat their mother, when they slew Apshu thy spouse, thou didst not march at his side, but thou didst sit quietly. Disturbed is their interior, and we cannot rest. Remember Apshu thy spouse, and Mumu, who were vanquished? You dwell alone. You are not a mother. Restlessly you run about. You do not love us anymore, and now our eyes are heavy. Without ceasing, let us sleep. Go to battle and requite them, and give them over to the storm. When Tiamat heard this, the word pleased her, and she said, let us make storm and the gods in the midst of Apshu, and let us make war against the gods. They separated themselves and went to the side of Tiamat. They were angry. They plotted, not resting day or night. They took up the fight, fuming and raging. They held a meeting and planned the conflict. Mother Hubur, who fashions all things, added thereto irresistible weapons bearing monster serpents, sharp of tooth, and not sparing the fang. With poison instead of blood she filled their bodies, ferocious dragons. She clothed with terror. She crowned them with fear, inspiring glory, and made them like gods, so that he who would look upon them should perish from terror, so that their bodies might leap forward, and none turn back their breasts. She set up the viper, the dragon, and the lahamu, the great lion, the mad dog, the scorpion man, driving storm demons, the dragonfly, and the bison, bearing unsparing weapons, unafraid, bearing unsparing weapons, unafraid of battle. Powerful were her decrees, irresistible were they. Altogether 11 kinds of monsters of this sort she brought into being. Of those among the gods, her firstborn who formed her assembly, she exalted King Gu. In their midst she made him great, to march at the head of the army, to direct the forces, to raise the weapons for the engagement, and to launch the attack. The high command of the battle she entrusted to his hand. She caused him to sit in the assembly, saying, I have cast a spell for thee. I have made thee great in the assembly of the gods. The dominion over all the gods I've given into thy hand. Mayest thou be highly exalted, thou, my unique spouse. May thy names become greater than those of all the Annunaki. She gave him the tablet of destinies. She fastened it upon his breast. As for thee, thy command shall not be changed. The word of thy mouth shall be dependable. Now, when King Gu had been exalted and had received supreme dominion, they decreed the destinies to the gods, her sons, saying, May the opening of your mouths quiet the fire god. May thy overpowering poison vanquish the opposing might. After this, Tiamat had made strong preparations. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian Epic of Creation, Tablet number 2. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakim Ra. It is provided to the public by Amen-Ra University. Tiamat gathered together her creation and organized battle against the gods, her offspring. Henceforth, Tiamat plotted evil because of Apsu. It became known to Ea that she had arranged the conflict. Ea heard this matter. He lapsed into silence in his chamber and sat, motionless. After he had reflected and his anger had subsided, he directed his steps to Anshar, his father. He entered the presence of the father of his begetter, Anshar, and related to him all of Tiamat's plotting. My father, Tiamat, our mother, has conceived a hatred for us. She has established a host, and her savage fury. All the gods have turned to her. Even those who you begot also take her side. They took the side of Tiamat, fiercely plotting, unresting by night and day, lusting for battle, raging, storming. They set up a host to bring about conflict. Mother Hubar, who forms everything, supplied irresistible weapons and gave birth to giant serpents. They had sharp teeth. They were merciless. With poison instead of blood, she filled their bodies. She clothed the fearful monsters with dread. She loaded them with an aura and made them godlike. She said, "Let their onlooker feebly perish. May they constantly leap forward and never retire." She created the Hydra, the dragon, the hairy hero, the great demon, the savage dog, and the scorpion man. Fierce demons, the fish man and the bull man, carriers of merciless weapons, fearless in the face of battle. Her commands were tremendous, not to be resisted. Altogether, she made 11 of that kind. Among the gods, her sons, whom she constituted her host, she exalted Kingu and magnified him among them. The leadership of the army, the direction of the host, the bearing of weapons, campaigning, the mobilization of conflict, the chief executive power of battle supreme command, she entrusted to him and set him on a throne. I have cast the spell for you and exalted you in the host of the gods. I have delivered to you the rule of all the gods. You are indeed exalted, my spouse. You are renowned. Let your commands prevail over all the Annunaki. She gave him the tablet of destinies and fastened it to his breast, saying, "Your order may not be changed. Let the utterance of your mouth be firm." After Kingu was elevated and had acquired the power of Annunship, he decreed the destinies for the gods, her sons. May the utterance of your mouth subdue the fire god. May your poison, by its accumulation, put down aggression. Anshar heard. The matter was profoundly disturbing. He cried, "Woe!" and bit his lip. His heart was in fury. His mind could not be calmed. Over Ea, his son, his cry was faltering. "My son, you who provoked the war, take responsibility for whatever you alone have done. You set out and killed Apsu. And as for Tiamat, whom you made furious, where is her equal?" The gatherer of counsel, the learned prince, the creator of wisdom, the god Nutamud, with soothing words and calming utterance, gently answered his father Anshar. "My father, deep mind, who decrees destiny, who has the power to bring into being and destroy. Anshar, deep mind, who decrees destiny, who has the power to bring into being and to destroy. I want to say something to you. Come down for me for a moment and consider that I performed a helpful deed. Before I killed Apsu, who could have seen the present situation? Before I quickly made an end of him, what were the circumstances were I to destroy him?" Anshar heard. The words pleased him. His heart relaxed to speak to Ea. "My son, your deeds are fitting for a god. You are capable of a fierce, unequaled blow. Ea, your deeds are fitting for a god. You are capable of a fierce, unequaled blow. Go before Tiamat and appease her attack. Diminish her fury with your incantation. He heard the speech of Anshar, his father. He took the road to her, proceeded on the route to her. He went. He perceived the tricks of Tiamat. He stopped, fell silent, and turned back. He entered the presence of August Anshar, penitently addressing him. My father, Tiamat's deeds are too much for me. I perceived her planning, and my incantation was not equal to it. Her strength is mighty. She is full of dread. She is altogether very strong. None can go against her. Her very loud cry did not diminish. I became afraid of her cry and turned back. My father, do not lose hope. Send a second person against her. Though a woman's strength is very great, it is not equal to a man's. Disband her cohorts. Break up her plans before she lays her hands on us. Anshar cried out in intense fury, addressing Anu, his son. Honored son, hero, warrior, whose strength is mighty, whose attack is irresistible, hasten and stand before Tiamat. Appease her rage that our heart may relax. If she does not hearken to your word, address to her words of petition that she may be appeased. He heard the speech of Anshar, his father. He took the road to her, proceeded on the route to her. Anu went. He perceived the tricks of Tiamat. He stopped, fell silent, and turned back. He entered the presence of Anshar, the father, who begat him, penitently addressing him. My father, Tiamat's deeds are too much for me. I perceived her planning, but my incantation was not equal to it. Her strength is mighty. She is full of dread. She is altogether very strong. No one can go against her. Her very loud noise does not diminish. I became afraid of her cry and turned back. My father, do not lose hope. Send another person against her. Though a woman's strength is very great, it is not equal to a man's. Disband her cohorts. Break up her plans before she lays her hands on us. Anshar lapsed into silence, staring at the ground. He nodded to Ea, shaking his head. The Ijiji and all the Annunaki had assembled. They sat in tight-lipped silence. No god would go face-to-face with Tiamat. No god would go out against Tiamat. Yet the Lord Anshar, the father of the great gods, was angry in his heart and did not summon anyone. A mighty son, the avenger of his father, he who hastens to war, the warrior Marduk. Ea summoned him to his private chamber to explain to him his plans. Marduk, give counsel. Listen to your father. You are my son, who gives me pleasure. Go reverently before Anshar. Speak, take your stand, appease him with your glance. Ea rejoiced at his father's word. He drew near and stood in the presence of Anshar. Anshar saw him. His heart filled with satisfaction, he kissed his lips and removed his spear. My father, do not hold your peace, but speak forth. I will go and fulfill your desires. Anshar, do not hold your peace, but speak forth. I will go and fulfill your desires. Which man has drawn up his battle array against you? And will Tiamat, who is a woman, attack you with her weapons? My father, begetter, rejoice and be glad. Soon you will tread on the neck of Tiamat. Anshar, begetter, rejoice and be glad. Soon you will tread on the neck of Tiamat. Go, my son, conversing with all knowledge, appease Tiamat with a pure spell. Drive the storm chariot without delay, and with a sound which cannot be repelled, turn her back. Ea rejoiced at my father's words. With glad heart he had addressed his father. Lord of the gods, destiny of the great gods, if I should become your avenger, if I should bind Tiamat and preserve you, convene an assembly and proclaim for me an exalted destiny. Sit, all of you, in Upshukanaku with gladness, and let me with my utterance decree destinies instead of you. Whatever I instigate must not be changed, nor may my command be nullified or altered. The Enuma Elish, Tablet number 3, Babylonian Epic of Creation. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakimra. It is provided to the public by Annunaki University. Anshar opened his mouth, and unto Gaga, his minister, spake the word. O Gaga, thou minister that rejoiceth my spirit, unto Lamu and Lahamu will I send thee. Thou can attain. Thou shalt cause to be brought before thee. Let the gods, all of them, make ready for a feast. At a banquet let them sit. Let them eat bread. Let them mix wine, that for Marduk, their avenger, they may decree the fate. Go, Gaga, stand before them, and all that I tell thee repeat unto them, and say, Anshar, your son hath sent me. The purpose of his heart he has made known unto me. The purpose of his heart he hath made known unto me. He saith that Tiamat our mother hath conceived a hatred for us. With all her force she rageth, full of wrath. All the gods have turned to her. With those whom ye created, they go at her side. They are banded together, and at the side of Tiamat they advance. They are furious. They devise mischief without resting night and day. They prepare for battle, fuming and raging. They have joined their forces and are making war. Umu-Hub-Ur, who formed all things, have made in addition weapons invincible. She has spawned monster serpents, sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. With poison instead of blood she hath filled their bodies. Fierce monster vipers she hath clothed with terror. With splendor she has decked them, she hath made them of lofty stature. Whoever beholdeth them, terror overcometh him. Their bodies rear up, and none can withstand their attack. She has set up vipers and dragons, and the monster Lahamu, and hurricanes and raging bombs, and scorpion men and mighty tempests, and fishmen and rams. They bear merciless weapons without fear of the fight. Her commands are mighty. None can resist them. After this fashion, huge of stature, hath she made 11 monsters among the gods who are her sons, and as much as he hath given her support, she hath exalted King Gu. In their midst she has raised him to power, to march before the forces, to lead the host, to give the battle signal, to advance the attack, to direct the battle, to control the fight. Unto him hath she entrusted in costly raiment, she hath made him sit, saying, I have uttered thy spell in the assembly of the gods. I have raised thee to power. The dominion over all the gods have I entrusted to thee. Be thou exalted, thou my chosen spouse. May they magnify thy name over all of them. The Annunaki, she hath given him the tablets of destiny on his breast. She has laid them, saying, Thy command shall not be without evil, and the word of thy mouth shall be established. Now, King Gu, thus exalted, having received the power of Anu, decreed the fate for the gods her sons, saying, Let the opening of your mouth quench the fire god. Whoso is exalted in the battle, let him display his might. I sent Anu, but he could not withstand her. Nutamud was afraid and turned back, but Marduk hath set out, the director of the gods, your son, to set out against Tiamat. His heart hath prompted him. He opened his mouth and spake unto me, saying, If I, your avenger, conquer Tiamat and give you life, appoint an assembly, Make my fate preeminent and proclaim it in Upsukanaku. Seat yourself joyfully together. With my word in place of you will I decree fate. May whatsoever I do remain unaltered. May the word of my lips never be changed, nor made of no avail. Hasten therefore and swiftly decree for him the fate which you bestow, that he may go and fight your strong enemy. Gaga went. He took his way in humbly before Lamu and Lahamu, the gods, his fathers. He made obeisance and he kissed the ground at their feet. He humbled himself. Then he stood up and spake unto them, saying, Anshar, your son hath sent me the purpose of his heart. He has made known unto me. He saith that Tiamat our mother hath conceived a hatred for us. With all her force she rageth, full of wrath. All the gods have turned to her. With those whom you created they go at her side. They are banded together, and at the side of Tiamat they advance. They are furious. They devise mischief without resting night and day. They prepare for battle. Fuming and raging, they have joined their forces and are making war. Umor-Hubor, who formed all things, had made an addition, weapons invincible. She has spawned monster serpents, sharp of tooth and merciless of fang. With poison instead of blood, she has filled their bodies. Fierce monster vipers she hath clothed with terror. With splendor she hath decked them. She hath made them of lofty stature. Whoever beholdeth them, terror overcometh him. Their bodies rear up, and none can withstand their attack. She hath set up vipers and dragons, and the monster Lahamu, and hurricanes, and raging hounds, and scorpion men, and mighty tempests, and fishmen, and rams. They bear merciless weapons without fear of the fight. Her commands are mighty. None can resist them. After this fashion, huge of stature, hath she made 11 monsters among the gods who are her sons, and as much as he hath given her support, she hath exalted King Gu. In their midst she has raised him the power to march before the forces, to lead the host, to give the battle signal, to advance the attack, to direct the battle, to control the fight. Unto him hath she entrusted in costly raiment she hath made him sit, saying, I have uttered thy spell in the assembly of the gods. I have raised thee to power. The dominion over all the gods have I entrusted unto thee. Be thou exalted, thou my chosen spouse. May thy magnify your name over all of them. The Annunaki, may they magnify thy name over all of them. The Annunaki. She hath given him the tablets of destiny on his breast. She laid them, saying, Thy command shall not be without avail, and the word of thy mouth shall be established. Now King Gu, thus exalted, having received the power of Anu, decreed the fate for the gods, saying, Let the opening of your mouth quench the fire, God. Whoso is exalted in the battle, let him display his might. I sent Anu, but he could not withstand her. Nutamud was afraid and turned back. But Marduk hath set out, the director of the gods, your son, to set out against Tiamat. His heart hath prompted him. He opened his mouth and spake unto me, saying, If I, your avenger, conquer Tiamat and give you life, appoint an assembly, make my fate preeminent and proclaim it. In Upsukanaku, seat yourselves joyfully together. With my word in place of you will I decree fate. May whatsoever I do remain unaltered. May the word of my lips never be changed, nor be made of no avail. Hasten therefore and swiftly decree for him the fate which you bestow, that he may go and fight your strong enemy. Lamu and Lahamu heard and cried aloud. All of the Ajiji elder gods wailed bitterly, saying, What has been altered so that they should? We do not understand the deed of Tiamat. Then did they collect and go, the great gods, all of them who decree fate. They entered in before Anshar. They kissed one another in the assembly. They made ready for the feast at the banquet they sat. They ate bread. They mixed sesame wine, the sweet drink. They were drunk with drinking. Their bodies were filled. They were wholly at ease. Their spirit was exalted. Then for Marduk, their avenger, did they decree the fate. Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakim Ra. It is provided to the public by Amun-Ra University. They prepared him for a lordly chamber before his fathers. As prince, he took his place. Thou art chiefest among the great gods. Thy fate is unequal. Thy word is Anu. O Marduk, thou art chiefest among the gods. Thy fate is unequaled. Thy word is Anu. Henceforth not without avail shall be thy command, and thy power shall it be to exalt and to abase. Established shall be the word of thy mouth. Irresistible shall be thy command. None among the gods shall transgress thy boundary. Abundance, the desire of the shrines of the gods, shall be established in thy sanctuary, even though they lack offerings. O Marduk, thou art our avenger. We give thee sovereignty over the whole world. Sit thou down in might, be exalted in thy command. Thy weapon shall never lose its power. It shall crush thy foe. O Lord, spare the life of him that putteth his trust in thee. But as for the God who began the rebellion, pour out his life. Then set they in their midst a garment, and unto Marduk, their firstborn, they spake, May thy fate, O Lord, be supreme among the gods, to destroy and to create. Speak thou the word, and thy command shall be fulfilled. Command now, and let the garment vanish, and speak the word again, and let the garment reappear. Then he spake with his mouth, and the garment vanished. Again he commanded it, and the garment reappeared. When the gods, his fathers, beheld the fulfillment of his word, they rejoiced, and they did homage to him, saying, Marduk is king. They bestowed upon him the scepter, and the throne, and the ring. They give him an invincible weaponry which overwhelmeth the foe. Go and cut off the life of Tiamat, and let the wind carry her blood into secret places. After the gods his fathers had decreed for the Lord his fate, they caused him to set out on a path of prosperity and success. He made ready the bow. He chose his weapon. He slung a spear upon him and fastened it. He raised the club. In his right hand he grasped it. The bow and the quiver he hung at his side. He set the lightning in front of them. With burning flame he filled his body. He made a net to enclose the inward parts of Tiamat. The four winds he stationed so that nothing of her might escape. The south wind and the north wind and the east wind and the west wind he brought near to the net, the gift of his father Anu. He created the evil wind and the tempest and the hurricane and the fourfold wind and the sevenfold wind and the whirlwind and the wind which had no equal. He sent forth the winds which he had created, the seven of them, to disturb the inward parts of Tiamat. They followed after him. Then the Lord raised the thunderbolt, his mighty weapon. He mounted a chariot, the storm unequaled for terror. He harnessed and yoked it into 4 horses. Destructive, ferocious, overwhelming, and swift of pace were their teeth. They were flecked with foam. They were skilled in battle. They had been trained to trample underfoot. Mighty in battle, with overpowering brightness his head was crowned. Then he set out. He took his way, and toward the raging Tiamat he set his face. On his lips he held. He grasped it in his hand, and they beheld him. The gods beheld him. The gods his fathers beheld him. The gods beheld him. And the Lord drew nigh. He gazed upon the inward parts of Tiamat. He perceived the muttering of Kingu, her spouse. As Marduk gazed, Kingu was troubled in his gait. His will was destroyed, and his motion ceased. And the gods, his helpers who marched by his side, beheld their leader's downfall, and their sight was troubled. But Tiamat, she turned not her neck. With lips that failed not, she uttered rebellious words. Thy coming as Lord of the gods, from their places have they gathered, in thy place are they. Then the Lord raised the thunderbolt, his mighty weapon, and against Tiamat. Then the Lord raised the thunderbolt, his mighty weapon, and against Tiamat, who was raging. Thus he sent the word. Thou art become great. Thou hast exalted thyself on high, and thy heart hath prompted thee to call to battle the fathers and the gods. Thou hast exalted Kingu to be thy spouse. Thou hast exalted him even as Anu. He should issue decrees. Thou hast followed after evil, and against the gods my fathers thou hast contrived thy wicked plan. Let then thy host be equipped, let thy weapons be guided on. Stand, I and thou, let us join battle. When Tiamat heard these words, she was like one possessed. She lost her reason. She was like one possessed. She uttered wild, piercing cries. She trembled and shook to her very foundations. She recited an incantation. She pronounced her spell, and the gods of the battle cried out for their weapons. Then advanced Tiamat and Marduk, the counselor of the gods, to the fight. They came on. To the battle they drew nigh. The Lord spread out his net and caught her, and the evil wind that was behind him he let loose in her face. As Tiamat opened her mouth to its fullest extent, he drove in the evil wind, while as yet she had not shut her lips. The terrible winds filled her belly, and her courage was taken from her. In her mouth she opened wide. He seized the spear and burst her belly. He severed her inward parts. He pierced her heart. He overcame her and cut off her life. Cast down her body and stood upon it. When he had slain Tiamat the leader, her might was broken, her host was scattered, and the gods, her helpers who marched by her side, trembled and were afraid and turned back. They took to flight to save their lives, but they were surrounded so that they could not escape. He took them captive. He broke their weapons. In the net they were caught, in the snare they sat down. They received punishment from him. They were held in bondage. And on the 11 creatures which she had filled with the power of striking terror, upon the troop of devils who marched at her, he brought affliction, and their opposition he trampled under his feet. Moreover, King Gu, whom she had exalted over them, he conquered, and with the god Duga he counted him. He took from him the tablets of destiny that were not rightly his. Now after the hero Marduk had conquered and cast down his enemies and had made the arrogant foe, even like and had fully established Anshar's triumph over the enemy, and had attained the purpose of Nudimmud. Over the captive gods he strengthened his durance, and unto Tiamat, whom he had conquered, he returned. And the Lord stood upon Tiamat's hinder parts, and with his merciless club he mashed her skull. He cut through the channels of her blood, and he made the north wind bear it away into secret places. His fathers beheld, and they rejoiced and were glad. Presents and gifts they brought into him. Then the Lord rested, gazing upon her dead body, while he divided the flesh of her, and devised a cunning plan. He split her up like a flat fish into 2 halves. One half of her he established as a covering for heaven. He fixed a bolt. He stationed a watchman, and bade them not to let her waters come forth. He passed through the heavens. He surveyed the regions thereof. And over against the deep he set the dwelling of Nudimmud. And the Lord measured the structure of the deep, and he founded Isara, and a mansion like unto it. The mansion Isara, which he created as heaven, he caused Anu, Bel, and Ea and their districts to inhabit. Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakim Ra. It is provided to the public by Amin-Ra University. He, Marduk, made the stations for the great gods, the stars, their images, as the stars of the zodiac. He fixed. He ordained the year into sections. He divided it. For the 12 months, he fixed 3 stars. After he had the days of the year and the images, he founded the station of Nibiru, the planet Jupiter, to determine their bounds, that none might err or go astray. Set the station of Bel and Ea along with him. He opened great gates on both sides. He made strong the bolt on the left and on the right. In the midst thereof he fixed the zenith, the moon god. He caused to shine forth. The night he entrusted to him. He appointed him a being of the night to determine the days. Every month without ceasing with the crown he covered him, saying, At the beginning of the month when thou shinest upon the land, thou commandest the horns to determine 6 days, and on the 7th day to divide the crown, and on the 14th day thou shalt stand opposite. When the sun god was on the foundation of heaven, you shall cease, and you shall make the path unto the sun. God shalt thou cause to draw nigh, and on that day thou shalt stand opposite, and the sun God shall brighten you and traverse her way. Thou shalt cause to draw nigh, thou shalt judge the right. The gods, his fathers, beheld the net which he had made. They beheld the bow, and how its work was accomplished. They praised the work which he had done. Then Anu, in the assembly of the gods, kissed the bow, saying, It is. And thus he named the names of the bow, saying, Longwood shall be one name, and his third name shall be Bowstar. In heaven shall it be. Then he fixed a station for it. Now he set a throne in heaven. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation. This audio presentation is read and voiced by Shakim Ra. It is provided to the public by Amin-Ra University. When Marduk heard the word of the gods, his heart prompted him, and he devised a cunning plan. He opened his mouth, and unto Ea he spake. That which he had conceived in his heart he imparted unto him. My blood will I take, and bone will I fashion. I will make man, that man made. I will create man who shall inhabit the earth, that the service of the gods may be established, and that their shrines may be built. But I will alter the ways of the gods, and I will change their paths. Together shall they be oppressed. Unto evil shall they descend. And Ea answered him and spake the word, The assembly of the gods I have changed, and the path of the gods I have changed. They rejoiced. In Shukanaku they set their dwelling. Of the heroic son, their avenger, they cried. They seated themselves, and in the assembly they named him. They all cried aloud, and they exalted him. The seventh tablet. O Asar-I, Marduk, bestower of planting, founder of sowing, creator of grain and plants, who caused the green herb to spring up. O Asaru, Alim, Marduk, he who is revered in the house, who aboundeth in counsel. The gods pay homage. Fear took hold upon them. O Asaru, Alim, Nuna, Marduk, the mighty one, the light of the Father who begat him, who directed the decrees of Anu, Bel, and Ea. He was their patron. He ordained their steps. He whose provision is abundance goeth forth. Tutu, Marduk is he who created them anew. Should their wants be pure, then are they satisfied. Should he make an incantation, then are the gods appeased. Should they attack him in anger, he withstandeth their onslaught. Let him therefore be exalted, and in the assembly of the gods let him stay. None among the gods can rival him. Tutu Marduk is Ukina, the life of the host of the gods, who established for the gods the bright heavens. He set them on their way, and ordained their path. Never shall his deeds be forgotten among men. Tutu as Zeazog, thirdly they name the bringer of purification, the god of the favoring breeze, the lord of hearing and mercy, the creator of fullness and abundance, the founder of pleasantness, who increaseth all that is small. In sore distress we felt his favoring breeze. Let them say, let them pay reverence, let them bow in humility before him. Tutu as Aga Asag, may mankind fourthly magnify, the lord of the pure incantation, the quickener of the dead, who had mercy upon the captive gods, who removed the yoke from upon the gods his enemies. For their forgiveness did he create mankind. The merciful one, with whom it is to bestow life, may his deeds endure, may they never be forgotten, in the mouth of mankind whom his hands have made. Tutu as Mu'asag, fifthly his pure incantation, may their mouth proclaim, who through his pure incantation have destroyed all the evil ones. Sagzu Marduk, who knoweth the heart of the gods, who seeth through the innermost part. The evildoer he hath not caused to go forth with him. Founder of the assembly of the gods, subduer of the disobedient, director of righteousness. Tutu as ZC, he who put an end to anger. Tutu as Seker, thirdly the destroyer of the foe, who put their plans to confusion, who destroyed all the wicked. He named the four quarters of the world. Mankind he created, and upon him understanding was established. The mighty one Agil, the creator of the earth. Zulamu, the giver of counsel and of whatsoever, Mumu, the creator, Mulil of the heavens, the chief of all lords, supreme is his might, Lugal Durma, the king of the band of the gods, the lord of the rulers, who is exalted in a royal habitation, who among the gods is gloriously supreme, Adununa, the counselor of Ea, who created the gods, his fathers, onto the path of whose majesty no god can ever attain. In Dulasag he made it known, pure is his dwelling. Supreme is his night. In the midst of Tiamat and of the battle, the stars which shineth in the heavens, may he hold the beginning and the future. May they pay homage to him, saying, he who forced his way through the midst of Tiamat without resting, let his name be Nibiru, the Caesar of the mist. For the stars of heaven, he upheld the paths, he shepherded all the gods like sheep. He conquered Tiamat, he troubled and ended her life. In the future of mankind, when the days grow old, may this be heard without ceasing. May it hold sway forever, since he created the realm of heaven and fashioned the firm earth. The Lord of the world, the Father Bel, has called his name. This title, which all the spirits of heaven proclaimed, did Ea hear, and his spirit was rejoiced. And he said, he whose name his fathers have made glorious shall be even as I. Let his name be Ea. The binding of all my decrees shall he control. All my commands shall he make known. By the name of 50 did the great gods proclaim the 50 names. They made his path preeminent. Let them, the names of Marduk, be held in remembrance, and let the first man proclaim them. Let the wise and the understanding consider them together. Let the father repeat them and teach them to his son. Let them be in the ears of the pastor and the shepherd. Let a man rejoice in Marduk, the Lord of the gods, that he may be able to cause his land to be fruitful, and that he himself may have prosperity. His word standeth fast, his command is unaltered. The utterance of his mouth hath no God ever annulled. He gazed in his anger, he turned not his neck. When he is wroth, no God can withstand his indignation. When he is wide in his heart, and broad in his compassion, the sinner and evildoer cannot stand in his presence. They received instruction. They spake before him unto Marduk day and night. For 3 years and 3 months, one day and one night, the blood of the dragon flowed.